Imagine orchids so healthy they're practically glowing and bursting into bloom all year round. Stop settling for average. This guide will take you through revolutionary watering techniques and unconventional water sources that will elevate your orchid care to a fine art, guaranteeing unparalleled health and breathtaking beauty of your entire collection. Water is the most misunderstood part of orchid care. Too much and your orchid rots, too little and it dehydrates. But the secret is not in how much you're watering your orchids, it's understanding the hydration needs of your orchid. In this masterclass, we'll debunk myths, we'll decode orchid thirst, and we'll provide you with a personal plan to transform your orchids from barely surviving to thriving. The rainwater myth and why we need more. Everybody says orchids love rainwater, and it's true, but only to a point. Rainwater is soft, it's chlorine-free, and it feels natural. But it's not perfect. Depending on where you live, rainwater can contain anything from dust to trace metals from your roof or your gutters to pollutants, even heavy metals and other contaminants that can increase the acidity of the water, even to the point of acid rain. So it can alter the pH, and this can then weaken the roots. And even when it's clean, it's still missing one thing: nutrients. In nature, orchids get more than just rain alone. They get minerals and organic matter from the environment they're in. And these kinds of things you just can't catch in a bucket. So yes, rainwater is great as a base, but your orchids need more than what just falls from the sky. And now we'll help you decode to tell when your orchid really is thirsty. Decoding orchid thirst goes beyond just the surface. Most orchid growers will look at a pot and say, the bark is dry, it's time to water. But orchids don't play by houseplant rules. You need to go beneath the surface to find out what's really happening, and it's in the roots. Healthy orchid roots are firm and plump and silver green-gray when they are dry and dark green when they are hydrated. If they're shriveled or soft, then you have dehydration and rot. So learn to read their color and texture and not just the surface of the media. But here's the twist. How fast your orchid dries out is dependent on the environment they're in. So humidity, temperature, airflow, and light all play an important role here. So if you've got two orchids on the same shelf, their watering needs are going to be completely different depending on where they are sitting. So instead of watering by schedule, water by observation. Because when you understand how your orchid drinks, you'll never over or underwater again. Advanced watering for peak performance. Once you're able to read your orchid signs, it's time to master those techniques. And here, precision makes the difference. The soak and drain technique. This is taking your orchid pot, putting it into room temperature water and letting it stand for between 10 and 15 minutes, allowing those roots to drink in deep and then removing it and allowing it to drain completely. So this is giving it the drink and breathe rhythm that they do in nature. Bottom watering. This is great for small orchids or for seedlings where you want to ensure that you're getting the media evenly moist without disturbing the roots. So here you're going to be placing the pot into a shallow bowl of water, allowing the water to be drawn upwards. This is not going to be ideal for all orchids, as some media doesn't wick the water upwards. But otherwise, it's a nice, clean and controlled way of watering that helps prevent crown rot. And misting versus watering. Misting is just basically increasing the humidity around your orchid. It's not actually watering your orchid. This is an important part in dry environments, but always best done early in the day. But if you are in an area with high humidities, you can skip misting altogether. And either way, depending on your environment and if you use it correctly, your orchid's going to love you. Alternative water sources and water treatment. You can use distilled water, reverse osmosis water, or even filtered water, and each of these have their own specific pros and cons. Distilled and reverse osmosis water are pure and clean, and they help limit any buildup of minerals in the media. But also, being so pure and clean can be problematic because there are no minerals in it. It can cause an imbalance in the media, and if you haven't supplemented with nutrients, you are going to have a problem with that orchid being able to keep its balance right. Filtered water is a good alternative, especially for the home grower. What it does, it filters out the chlorine and other impurities while still leaving trace minerals available in the water. So this is excellent for home growers. Tap water. Tap water is not the villain that it's always made out to be. If your tap water is not too hard, it can work beautifully with a few precautions. Firstly, you're going to have to leave it to sit for around 24 hours for that chlorine to be released. Or you can use a dechlorinator. Also, keep an eye out for white crustiness on the media. That is a mineral buildup. Now we can move on to the pH and the TDS. It's now time to fine-tune your techniques just by learning two numbers. Firstly is the pH, which should be around 5.5 or 6.5 for an ideal balance for your orchid. The TDS should be below 150. This is to ensure that there's no nutrient lockout. Once you start measuring, you'll know exactly what your orchid is drinking and why it needs it. For deeper insights into pH and TDS, check out that Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. Ed has posted up a lot of articles down there to answer all your questions. Also, if you don't have a pH meter or a TDS meter, check out that Amazon link in the description box, and they're relatively inexpensive, but they are of a great help to your orchid care. Your orchid's personalized hydration plan. Now is the time to get personal. Your orchid's perfect watering routine is always revolved around three things: the type of orchid it is, the pot, and the environment that is in. So for instance, dendrobiums and cattleyas like those wet, dry cycles all the time, whereas things like phalaenopsis and paphiopedilums like to be moist throughout. So you need to understand your orchids a bit and which orchids you have to know how to go about your watering routine. Also, the pots that they are in. Plastic pots hold a lot more moisture for a lot longer than a clay pot would do. Also, the media that you have planted them in. If you've put something like sphagnum moss stays damp for a lot longer than what lava rock or lacquer would. So you need to understand what pot and what media you're using to understand how much and how often to water. And the environment you're in. If you're in a bright, airy, warm setup, then you know your orchid is going to dry out relatively quickly. And if you're in a cooler, more humid environment, you're going to have to water less frequently. So let's troubleshoot some of those common problems. Root rot, that's from overwatering or poor drainage. Dehydration, that generally shows up as those roots shriveling, those leaves shriveling and going limp. Then you know it's time to add more water. And then nutrient blockout. This is from a buildup of minerals in your media that can be sorted out if you flush regularly with clean, clear water. Observation is everything. Good growers don't water by calendar, they water by watching, touching, and adjusting. You watch how long the media stays wet for, how the roots respond to it, and how the plant itself reacts. So whether you're collecting water, you're filtering water, or timing that perfect soak, remember, watering orchids isn't about routine, it's about relationship. It's understanding your plants, observing their rhythms, and adjusting as you go. When watering becomes about partnership and not guesswork, that's when your orchids start to thrive instead of just survive. And thank you for watching. If you found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.